Daniel Marsden, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Let's take you back 20 years. What was it like to captain your country for the Sydney Olympics?
Just being part of the Olympic team is obviously an honour and a privilege. It's a lot of hard work, and for the majority of the players, we had 8 years of preparation because we missed out in '96 and had to wait another 4 years before we got our chance to be on that Olympic stage again. So a lot of good players, unfortunately, didn't get that opportunity. So to be given the honour to be the captain of the team as well was pretty awesome.
And you mentioned '96. It must have been a very big contrast for being in, I think it was minus 18 degree temperatures, trying to qualify for the Olympic Games in '96 to World Championships in Perth in '98 and the Olympic Games in Sydney in 2000.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a completely different sort of set up in relation to how we were going to prepare. The games were awarded in '93, and I was lucky enough to be there in '92, so I knew what it was all about. So the excitement of 2000 sort of had started to build as soon as we were awarded the games, and obviously we also knew that we'd have a ticket directly into the games. So once we went through that major disappointment in '96, and then we were given a ticket to virtually every major event leading into Olympic Games. It took a lot of that qualification pressure off, and which is the pressure to qualify is actually far worse than the actual pressure to perform at the Olympic Games. When you're actually at the games, you've done everything you can, you're prepared as best you can, and you put it all on the line. Qualifying is a completely different set of circumstances, and it's never ideal to have to qualify in an environment that's is completely foreign to you, which is what unfortunately we had to do in '96.
And Daniel, tell us a little bit about the 2000 games and some of the highlights for you, both in and out of the pool.
Mate, there were hundreds. It was such a fantastic experience. Sydney itself was a completely different place. There was virtually no traffic. Everyone walked around with a big smile on their face. The atmosphere was electric, and if you were an Australian athlete, you were put up on a pedestal. So it was just an amazing time and place to be around, especially if you're an Australian athlete or any athlete in that sense, I guess. Little things for me personally, walking out before our first game, as captain, you lead the team out. Those sort of little memories are, gold. Every day there was something new and something different, which was incredible.
Being in the village with all those other world athletes and stars, were there some highlights of some of the athletes that you met in and around the village?
Yeah, you may be aware I had a pretty crazy haircut, which I had thought about for the 7 years prior, and I mean it was always one of those little things that I did was go and get a bit of a crazy haircut before a major event. So having a green and gold shark-fin Mohawk sort of made me a bit of a standout walking around the village. And people would come up to me and ask for a photo, which was quite interesting. But the best time I had in the village actually was I had the opportunity to bring my wife and my two boys in. My daughter wasn't born by then, so it was just my two young boys. And to have them, walk around the village with me and run around and have a good time and meet a lot of the athletes and those sort of things was probably my highlight in the village. That's for sure.
I was going to ask you about that bright green Mohawk. Now, you said you planned it for 7 years prior. Tell us a little bit about your thought. Did you plan it as soon as the Olympics got announced? Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, I had for the '92 Olympic Games, I had a map of Australia carved into the back of my head, a flat top haircut with a map of Australia carved in the back of my head. And obviously, when the games were announced the following year, I thought, oh, what can I do? And obviously the water polo teams, the men's teams, the Aussie Sharks. And so I thought, oh, I wonder if I could do some sort of shark thing. So I had this idea brewing for all those years. But in between that, I had a boxing kangaroo on the back of my head. I had all sorts of other mohawks and flat tops and crazy sort of things. So, yeah, it was. It definitely the idea grew and grew over that period to what it came out as when we got to the Sydney Olympics. So it was a lot of fun.
And for you, an athlete that had come off Barcelona and knowing what the Olympics is all about, you've mentioned that. What did it feel like for you when Antonio Samaranch said those famous words, "The winner is Sydney"?
Well, we actually had organised a announcement party down at the Sydney Rowing Club. So I was down there with about 500 of my family and friends. There's a whole lot of other athletes, obviously rowers and people we knew who also were possibly going to be eligible to compete in those games. So when they made the decision, it was quite spectacular. And we'd been a bit cheeky and already made up some Sydney 2000 shirts, which we were wearing around. And the party progressed into town. And I think I got home sometime the following day. So it was quite a great celebration, that's for sure.
And as you've mentioned, and others have mentioned too, water polo is very European-dominated sport. To have the opportunity in a home Olympics to hear the national anthem sung by the whole crowd, what was that like?
Oh, it's amazing. Unfortunately, the majority of where we compete is overseas, and the opportunity to have all my family and friends actually at an event at an Olympic Games to see us, was absolutely amazing. And you're right, we always sing in the national anthem loud and proud as the Australian men's team. And when you're standing there and you actually face the crowd and you can see the crowd sing it back to you as loud and as proud, it's quite incredible. And actually, after our last game, we finished and we walked around basically to thank the crowd, for their support over the tournament. And I managed to grab one of the game balls and I kicked it into the crowd. And by sheer coincidence, my father caught it, and everyone thought that I'd actually sized him out and kicked it to him. And it was an absolute fluke and coincidence that it actually landed to him. So he got a souvenir out of the event as well.
So Sydney Swans in 2001, straight after the Olympic Games, kicking it straight to your father in the stand.
Yeah, exactly. People thought I was a much better kick than what I am.
Tell us one moment. You've told us a number, but tell us one moment that just is etched into the memory of the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games 20 years on.
I think for all water polo people, it's got to be when the Australian women won the gold medal. We were actually we were at Ride Pool while the girls were playing their final game, and we were lucky enough to have a television there. So in our warm up, we were watching the game, and we were lucky enough not to start before they scored the winning goal. So to see an Aussie team, an Aussie water polo team win an Olympic medal, was fantastic, and that sort of hopefully inspired a whole lot of people to come and play our sport.
And you've had a long career in water polo. You're coaching in water polo at a national level. Tell us a little bit about what water polo has given you overall.
Well, it's been obviously a massive part of my life. I took up the opportunity to go down to Canberra on scholarship with the AS when I just turned 16, and I spent 17 years in Canberra, and obviously met my wife Vanessa, who was a swimmer at the AS at the time. At the age of 20, and so we've been together now for just on 30 years, and I've obviously finished high school there. University, my whole life was based around water polo. All our children were born in Canberra. Mitchell, Keenan, and Jolie were all born in the three major hospitals. They're all in a different hospital down in Canberra. And as you say, I've coached and played all the way through. I still enjoy getting in. I just love the what the game's all about, and I've travelled the world, all those sort of things. Absolutely special moments. And now my kids, play, and I try and help out with them as much as possible, and with pretty much anyone else who asks. So yeah, it's just in the blood.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, General. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.